Chapter 463. Everyone's eyes and minds were attracted by the 9th batch of heaven-grade artifacts, except for the 6 Yang family young lords. Since the beginning of the artifact snatching battle, none of them had moved. All of their followers had been dispatched one by one, and now each of them only had a single blood warrior left to guard them. All 6 of them were vigilant against each other, secretly observing each other's movements. Yang Kai, Yang Wei, and Yang Zhao didn't look anxious, but Yang Kong, Yang Xin, and Yang Ying were somewhat anxious. When one of the cultivators on their side lost in the artifact snatching, they would sigh and sigh, but when they managed to snatch a good grade artifact, they would smile happily. However, no matter who it was, all of them were quietly waiting for the appearance of a mysterious grade artifact, and they all knew that it was about to appear. Suddenly, several thousand meters high in the sky, a few faint star-like lights flickered. When these lights lit up, an extraordinary energy fluctuation was transmitted over at the same time. Everyone's attention was drawn by these energy fluctuations, and they couldn't help but look up. The lights became brighter and brighter as they approached the ground at an incredible speed, like meteors falling from the sky, leaving behind a trail of colorful light. The eyes of the 6 brothers all lit up as their hearts filled with excitement. A mysterious grade artifact had finally appeared, and there were 8 of them at once. This was the finale of the artifact snatching battle, and the 8 most precious artifacts. Mysterious grade was the highest grade in this world, whether it was artifacts or pills. Mysterious grade pills were constantly being refined. Mysterious grade artifacts were even more difficult to refine, so almost every mysterious grade artifact could become a first-class forces family heirloom. Taking out 8 mysterious grade artifacts in one go, only the central capital's 8 great families had such a heritage. Soon, the 8 mysterious grade artifacts that fell from the sky had fallen to a height of 1,000 meters from the ground and were still approaching at an even faster speed. Whether it was the onlookers or the cultivators who were in the midst of snatching these artifacts, all of them felt an overwhelming pressure descend upon them. They all felt a deathly aura pressing down from the sky. This aura was like the omen that the world was about to be destroyed, causing them to tremble in fear. "Run!" someone exclaimed. Everyone immediately flew away. Starting from the 3rd batch, all the artifacts had been tampered with in advance in order to steal them. First, he would have to withstand the attack from the artifact. These 8 mysterious grade artifacts were presumably the same. Even an immortal ascension boundary 7th or 8th stage master would find it difficult to withstand an attack from a mysterious grade artifact, let alone these bystanders. Cries of alarm rang out, and the crowd immediately fled in panic like stray dogs, using their movement techniques to avoid Pijing Lake. Not only them, but even the cultivator who was fighting for the treasure also hurriedly dodged, wanting to avoid the sharp edge. The 6 Yang brothers didn't move. They just stared at the light in the sky. His eyes grew brighter and brighter. 800 zhang, 700 zhang. At this distance, the embryonic forms of the 8 artifacts could be clearly seen, all of them different shapes and sizes. If Yang Kai didn't study them carefully, he wouldn't know what these artifacts were used for. Yang Kai released his powerful divine sense and swept it over the 8 artifacts, quickly becoming interested in one particular mirror. This mirror gave off a mysterious and obscure energy fluctuation and was extremely cold, so it should be an ice attribute artifact. Although Yang Kai cultivated the true Yang secret art, he could still feel that this mirror might be more powerful than the other artifacts. 500 zhang, as if they had reached an agreement, the 6 Yang brothers, who hadn't moved until now, flew up into the sky at the same time, scrambling to meet the 8 artifacts head-on. As they flew, the 6 of them exchanged glances, confirming each other's goals. Obviously, none of them wanted to start a dispute right off the bat. There were a total of 8 artifacts, so if they were divided evenly, each of them would get at least one. As for the remaining 2, they would need to compete for them. What made Yang Kai feel fortunate was that none of his brothers seemed to have the same goal as him. Now that the role of these mysterious grade artifacts was unknown, everyone naturally had the intention to grab as many as they could and avoid fighting as much as possible. One above and one below, The distance between the 6 brothers and the 8 artifacts rapidly narrowed. Everyone's yuan qi surged fiercely, and the 6 blood warriors who followed the 6 brothers also condensed their own strength. In the blink of an eye, the 12 blood warriors collided with the 8 artifacts. The speed of the 6 blood warriors suddenly increased, rushing ahead of the young lords and circulating their yuan qi to protect themselves, each of them using their own methods to grab the artifacts. The energy eruption of these mysterious grade artifacts was not something the 6 brothers could withstand with their current strength. Only the blood warriors could resist or avoid the attacks of these artifacts before they could snatch them. The brilliance was so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. A ferocious energy erupted in an instant. 6 muffled groans sounded at the same time, and from the brilliance of this light, there seemed to be a profound and mysterious pattern. Asterisk schwa schwa asterisk the remaining 2 artifacts that no one cared about fell to the ground. The 6 blood warriors stared at them with burning eyes, but none of them dared to act rashly. Even Yang Kai didn't dare to touch the barriers of these mysterious grade artifacts. However, under the gazes of the 6 blood warriors, a tall figure flew up to meet one of the 2 artifacts. This person seemed to have flown up after the 6 brothers. After seeing this person's face, Yang Kong couldn't help cursing, "Fuck, Lu Qingyao." This newcomer was none other than the Central Capital's first young lord. Like the 6 Yang family young lords, he had not taken any action before, but when the mysterious grade artifacts appeared, he finally moved. What's more, he also had the same goal as the Yang family young lords, eyeing one of the artifacts. Courting death. Yang Shen coldly snorted. How could a mysterious grade artifact's barrier be so easily triggered? No matter how strong Lu Qingyao was, he was still just an immortal ascension boundary 3rd stage cultivator. Once he was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. However, Lu Qingyao didn't seem to panic at all. Yuan Qi fiercely pushed his hand and the robe he was wearing suddenly lit up. On this robe, there was a large river, a crescent moon, and a lifelike fish swimming in it. The river began to flow, rolling waves and rolling rocks, forming an airtight water curtain that wrapped around Lu Qinyao's body. The crescent moon suddenly shot out thousands of rays of light towards the mysterious grade artifact while the seemingly inconspicuous fish suddenly transformed into a flood dragon, opening its bloody maw and releasing a monstrous momentum. Water Moon Blue Wave Armor. Yang Zhao exclaimed, apparently recognizing this artifact armor. Yang Kai's brow furrowed. Although he had never heard of this Water Moon Blue Wave armor before, Lu Qingyao daring to snatch a mysterious grade artifact by himself was definitely relying on it. This artifact armor was both offensive and defensive, so it was also a mysterious grade artifact. Lu Qingyao was the Central Capital's first young lord and was from the Lu family, so it was reasonable for him to possess a mysterious grade artifact. In an instant, the flood dragon and the thousands of rays of light struck the mysterious grade artifact, immediately activating its barrier and causing countless golden rays to flash out, covering the thousands of rays of light in a flash. The flood dragon struggled for a while but was unable to resist the power of the golden rays and suddenly dissipated. Lu Qingyao took this opportunity to grab the artifact in his hand, the countless rays of golden light striking his body, causing the water curtain around his body to fluctuate violently. Yang Kong and the others were secretly shocked, but all of them were praying in their hearts that Lu Qingyao would be directly killed. However, to their disappointment, after the golden rays of light completely disappeared, they still couldn't harm Lu Qingyao. On the other hand, the Central Capital's first young lord wore an indifferent expression as he continued to hold onto the artifact. Just when everyone thought he had succeeded, Lu Qinyao's expression suddenly changed as his eyes bulged. From this artifact, a burst of blue energy suddenly shot out and wrapped around Lu Qinyao's body like ribbons, instantly wrapping around him several times. This blue energy was extremely strange and impossible to guard against. Even the Water Moon Blue Wave armor was unable to stop it. Stop! Lu Qinyao roared, the water curtain around his body fiercely spreading outwards, finally slowing down the speed at which the blue energy wrapped around him. The 6 Yang family young lords were all bewildered as they watched the situation unfold. But soon, Yang Wei reacted, his face paling as he turned to the blood warriors who were resisting the attack of the artifact and shouted, "Retreat!" But it was too late. Lu Qinyao had already relied on his artifact to block the attack and seize it, so how could the 6 blood warriors not do the same? They didn't have a mysterious grade artifact, but they did have profound cultivation and strength. The 6 blood warriors had already grabbed the artifacts their respective young lords wanted, so when Yang Wei shouted these words, the same blue energy burst out from the 6 artifacts and bound the 6 blood warriors. As soon as they saw these blue streaks of energy, the 6 blood warriors' expressions changed greatly. Obviously, they knew what these blue streaks of energy were, so without even thinking about it, they immediately scattered. However, these ribbon-like blue streaks of energy continued to chase after them, even faster than they were able to escape. None of them managed to escape, all of them being tied up tightly. Unlike ordinary ropes, these blue energy ribbons, after binding the 6 blood warriors, immediately merged into their bodies and disappeared, not affecting their freedom or movement. Separated by some distance, the 6 blood warriors glanced at each other, all of them wearing gloomy expressions. "We got caught," Tu Feng muttered. Everyone else gnashed their teeth. "Too insidious." Ingjiu didn't say a word and quickly rushed to Yang Kai's side, handed the mirror-like artifact he had snatched to Yang Kai, and flew off without looking back. Yang Kai frowned as he stared at him. Although he didn't find any injuries, the current Ingjiu was very different from his usual self. Now, he gave off the feeling of a tiger with its fangs pulled out, no threat at all. Not only was Ingjiu like this, but the other blood warriors were also the same, all of them handing over their artifacts to their respective young lords and leaving immediately. "What happened?" Yang Kang muttered, holding a ring artifact in his hand, somewhat puzzled. "Big brother, if it's convenient, can you tell us about it?" Yang Zhao looked at Yang Wei with a smile. Chapter 464. Just now, Yang Wei had obviously seen some clues, so he had ordered the blood warriors to retreat immediately, but it was still too late. Yang Wei definitely knew the mystery behind this. Listening to Yang Zhao's question, Yang Wei's expression remained indifferent, not intending to tell him the truth, but when he turned his head and saw Lu Qinyao, who was still entangled by the blue energy and unable to move, he frowned and nodded. Revealing this information wasn't a big deal, not to mention, even if he didn't say anything, as long as these people went back and asked the blood warriors, they would understand. Although Lu Qinyao relied on the power of his water moon blue wave armor to block the blue energy from corroding his body, he was unable to resolve this strange attack for a while. Seeing Yang Wei nod, he couldn't help turning his eyes to him and listening carefully. "My Yang family has 4 supreme elders, all of whom are above immortal ascension boundary masters. Including the patriarch, there are a total of 5. Yang Wei said indifferently, "The other 7 families are roughly the same. However, these above immortal ascension boundary masters are all old men who usually don't fight with others. Even during the war with the ash-gray cloud Evil Land, only 1 or 2 were dispatched. One of them is renowned throughout the world for his sealing technique. He is the Grand Elder of the Blood Warrior Hall." Huang Jiuzhou? Yang Zhao was surprised. Of the Yang family's supreme elders, only one was from the Blood Warrior Hall. When he was young, he was also a blood warrior of the Yang family, but after making great contributions to the Yang family, he was able to break through to the above immortal ascension boundary and reach the peak of the martial Dao and was granted the title of Supreme Elder. There was no one in the Yang family who didn't know his name, including all the masters of the Blood Warrior Hall. All of them took him as an example to improve themselves, hoping that one day they could also reach the same height as Huang Jiuzhou. Yang Wei nodded, reaching out and pointing to Lu Qinyao. These methods were created by him. The Qi binding seal has sealed Yuan Qi in his meridians. He can't use it at all. So it was him who did this. Yang Zhao suddenly realized, a look of horror appearing on his face. Then our blood warriors. Their quintessential essence has also been sealed, although they can break the quintessential essence binding seal with their strength. However, it would take at least 2 to 3 months for them to do so. Yang Wei explained softly. The faces of the Yang family members turned ugly. Originally, Each person only had 2 blood warriors around them, one responsible for guarding them. One of them was responsible for guarding the flag, and now one of them had been crippled by Huang Jiuzhou. In the future, whether it was attacking or defending, the strength that they could use would be reduced. Thinking of this, everyone turned to look at Yang Kai and couldn't help but feel a little envious. Only Yang Kai had 3 blood warriors under his command, so he could afford such a loss. The reason why Huang Jiuzhou had planted qi-binding seals in the 8 mysterious grade artifacts was obviously arranged by the Yang family. This was also a means to accelerate the progress of the inheritance war. Without the 6 blood warriors stirring up trouble, the situation was much clearer than before. Serves you right. Yang Kong glanced over at Lu Qingyao, who was still struggling with the qi-binding seal midair, a gloating look appearing on his face. Young Lord Lu, my Yang family's blood warriors can't even block the qi-binding seal. I think you'd better accept your fate and obediently hand over the artifact in your hand. If you do, we won't pursue this matter any further. Lu Qinyao's expression remained indifferent as he simply snorted and ignored these words. Yang Kong suddenly became a little annoyed. Coldly shouting, he shouted, Lu Qinyao, don't be so shameless. This artifact snatching battle is my Yang family's business. Why are you meddling in it? Mysterious grade artifact, I also want it. Lu Qinyao finally spoke, his tone neither hot nor cold, not showing the slightest sign of panic because he was trapped. There weren't many mysterious grade artifacts, so the Yang family being able to take out so many this time was obviously a big price to pay. It was very likely that these 8 artifacts were contributed by each of the 8 great families, otherwise, how could the numbers be so coincidental? Lu Qinyao being tempted by a mysterious grade artifact and participating in the fight for it was understandable. This explained why he had come here this time, but no one had expected that among the 8 artifacts that appeared at the end, not only were there fierce seals hidden, but also Huang Jiuzhou's qi-binding seal. Using both methods at once, all the blood warriors had fallen victim to it. Since you say so, don't blame this brother for being impolite. Yang Kong sneered, tilting his head and glancing around. Why don't we grab the artifact in young Lord Lu's hand first? The seal and qi-binding seal on that artifact had been triggered, so obviously it could be used immediately. As for the remaining artifact, it had fallen into Pijing Lake and couldn't be found for the time being. Yang Kang's proposal greatly excited Yang Xin and Yang Ying, both of whom were eager to try. When Lu Qinyao was at his peak, they didn't dare have any ideas about him, but now he was already struggling to resist the erosion of the qi-binding seal, so how could he have any strength left to fight with others? Yang Wei didn't say anything, but Yang Zhao just smiled, no one knowing what he was thinking. Yang Kong was too embarrassed to ask either of them, so he could only turn to Yang Kai and ask, "Ninth brother, say something." Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders and said, "As you wish." Ninth brother. Yang Kang's expression suddenly became gloomy. Although we're all opponents, you should give fifth brother some face. The things he snatched should have been ours. Yang Kai didn't deny this and simply said, "If I want something, I'll snatch it myself." Good. Yang Kong sneered, no longer bothering, instead turning to Lu Qinyao and saying, "Young Lord Lu, don't struggle, it's useless." Lu Qinyao snorted, his yuan qi suddenly surging violently, the water moon blue wave armor on his body also flickering, the river, fish and crescent moon patterns gradually becoming illusory. Yang Kong and the others' expressions changed drastically as they roared, "Lu Qinyao, are you crazy? That's a mysterious grade artifact." Lu Qinyao didn't speak and continued to push his yuan qi. Pa. The river pattern on the water moon blue wave armor suddenly burst, and with the disappearance of the river, the qi-binding seal suddenly dimmed. Pa. The crescent moon also disappeared, and the qi-binding seal dimmed greatly again. Pa. The fish shattered, and the blue vitality binding seal was like a broken mirror, exploding with a loud bang. The water moon blue wave armor on Lu Qinyao's body also turned to ash and fell apart. The floating fluorescent light in the sky gradually dimmed. A mysterious grade artifact had just died of old age. Lu Qinyao was like a tiger that had just been released from its cage, and under everyone's incredulous gazes, he shouted, "A trivial qi-binding seal wants to imprison me. Lu Qingyao, your Yang family is looking down on me too much." Yang Kang and the others' eyes trembled violently as they stared at the central capital's first young lord in disbelief, slowly shaking their heads with bitter smiles. Yang Kai's eyes also narrowed as he secretly admired Lu Qingyao. It seemed that Lu Qingyao was a man of unyielding character, one who would rather break than bend. The 6 blood warriors couldn't do anything about the qi-binding seal, not because they weren't strong enough, but because they didn't have Lu Qingyao's heritage. Lu Qingyao had clearly sacrificed his water-moon blue wave armor in order to shatter the shackles of the qi-binding seal. This price was not small. Moreover, not every artifact had such a function. The water-moon blue wave armor obviously had this ability. Do you want to fight one-on-one or all together? I, Lu Qingyao, will accept. Lu Qingyao stared at the 6 people scattered around him with a proud expression. Yang Kang's expression suddenly became awkward. Just now he hadn't taken Lu Qingyao seriously, but now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, how could he dare take the lead? If he was really defeated here by Lu Qingyao, he would lose all face. Yang Xin and Yang Ying also wore ugly expressions as they stared at Yang Wei, hoping he would say something. Lu Qingyao had already spoken, so if the brothers didn't respond, the Yang family would lose face. If word of this spread, the world would think the Yang family's younger generation were all soft persimmons. The artifact is right here. Lu Qingyao held the artifact he had just snatched and sneered. If any of you can withstand 3 of this Lu's moves, this Lu will personally offer this artifact to you. This repeated provocation caused all the Yang family young lords to wear gloomy expressions. Even Yang Zhao, the most shrewd of them all, couldn't help showing signs of anger. Brothers fighting to the death was still an internal struggle, but this Lu Qingyao was taking advantage of them and continuously spouting arrogant words. How could Yang Zhao tolerate this? However, among all the people present, the strongest was only Yang Wei, an immortal ascension boundary second-stage cultivator. He had fought with Lu Qingyao before, so he should know some of his details. Now that even he didn't dare to casually accept Lu Qingyao's challenge, how could the others dare? Everyone felt extremely embarrassed, especially since they were all from the central capital's first Yang family. Yang Wei's brow wrinkled, knowing that this stalemate wasn't a solution. Lu Qingyao had already spoken. If no one accepted this challenge now, it would only make the spectators below look down on the Yang family. Just as he was about to accept this challenge and use his own embarrassment to resolve the damage to the Yang family's reputation, Yang Kai smiled lightly and took a step forward, saying casually, "Anyone can withstand 3 of your moves?" Lu Qingyao frowned, seemingly not having expected that the first to answer would be Yang Kai, nodding firmly, "Yes." "If I can withstand 3 of your moves, the artifact will be mine?" "Yes." "Then it's a deal, I'll give it a try." Yang Kai nodded lightly, not showing the slightest trace of nervousness. As soon as these words came out, Yang Wei quickly said, "Ninth brother, don't be impulsive." "It's fine." Yang Kai waved his hand and said, "Big brother, just watch. In fact, our Yang family isn't so easily bullied." Yang Wei's expression was dull. Yang Zhao and the others were also stunned, some of them not understanding where Yang Kai's confidence came from. Although they had fought several times in the past and knew that Yang Kai's combat strength wasn't weak, this time, his opponent was not an ordinary person. This was the central capital's first master. Everyone thought that Yang Kai had lost his mind in anger. Yuan Qi's 8th stage strength against an immortal ascension boundary 3rd stage master. With such a big gap, there was no hope of victory. They also didn't know what Yang Kai was relying on. He had just obtained a mysterious grade artifact, so if he didn't refine it, he wouldn't be able to use it. Chapter 465. Not only were the Yang family masters surprised, but even the cultivator crowd below also showed shocked looks, all of them staring up at the sky, holding their breaths as they waited silently. The actions of the 6 Yang family masters were the focus of everyone's attention, so the scene just now was naturally imprinted in everyone's eyes. Up in the air, Yang Wei was a little worried, wondering where his 9th brother's confidence came from. Although he had some speculations in his heart that Yang Kai was mysterious and powerful, in the end, that was just speculation. Just now, when he was arguing with Lu Qingyao, he had only secretly placed his hopes on Yang Kai. His ninth brother, if he grew up, would definitely be qualified to compete with Lu Qingyao, but now, it was too early, not yet the time. Yang Kang and the others were stunned for a moment, but after a moment of silence, they all chuckled, their faces filled with schadenfreude. Although they and Yang Kai were brothers, they were now also opponents, so naturally they hoped he would be defeated and humiliated by Lu Qingyao and lose his reputation. Yang Kai had been in the limelight for too long, so now it was time for him to suffer a blow. Is this guy crazy? From the crowd, some mocking and incomprehensible voices rang out. Daring to accept a challenge from the central capital's first master, the Yang family's direct descendants are really rampant. What do you know? In this situation, whether he accepts or not, the Yang family's face will be lost in the end. Forcing a duck onto a perch, the Yang family has to at least show some face. Even if they lose, the Yang family will have an excuse to say it's not that the Yang family is inferior to the Lu family, it's just that there is a gap in age. Some self-proclaimed smart and shrewd cultivators pointed out the mystery of this situation, causing many people to suddenly realize something. Others nodded in agreement. However, there were also some people who were quietly watching Yang Kai to see if he had some kind of earth-shattering method up his sleeve. Yang Kai didn't look like someone who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Daring to speak such arrogant words in front of the central capital's first master, either he had a mental problem or he had real ability. Yang Kai was obviously not the first. For a time, everyone's eyes converged on a single person. The cultivator from the 6 camps who was fighting for the heaven-grade artifact no longer paid any attention to him. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Yang Kai did not make any unusual movements. Standing in midair, Yang Kai stared down at Lu Qingyao, stretching out his hand and motioning, "Young Lord Lu, please." Lu Qingyao couldn't help but frown, his arrogant face showing a displeased look as he snorted, "I'd like to see how you plan to block 3 of my moves." As soon as his voice fell, an extremely terrifying divine sense power erupted with a bang. This spiritual energy was filled with a destructive and domineering aura. It spread out in an instant like a spear piercing through the sky. It was enough to tear apart anyone's defense and destroy everyone's will. When this spiritual energy burst out, Lu Qingyao was like a sleeping dragon awakening from its slumber. It brought destruction to the world. The soul-type artifacts on the Yang family members instantly flashed fiercely and an invisible force emerged from their bodies, blocking the aftermath of Lu Qingyao's divine sense attack. Everyone's expression changed, and Yang Wei's expression became even more dignified. The last time he fought with Lu Qingyao, Yang Wei's expression had changed. Although he had been defeated, it hadn't been very miserable, but now it seemed that Lu Qingyao hadn't used his full strength at that time. No wonder he dared to boast about 3 moves. Even if Yang Wei had now broken through to the Immortal Ascension boundary 2nd stage, it would still be difficult for him to block 3 of Lu Qingyao's moves. This guy was different from the other Yang family young lords. All of the artifacts he wore were mysterious grade artifacts. With the support of these high-grade artifacts, his Immortal Ascension boundary 3rd stage cultivation had increased by several levels. Wung wung wung. A strange sound came from the void. When this sound entered people's ears, it immediately gave people a feeling that the sky was falling and the earth was cracking. It seemed that even the sky couldn't withstand such a divine sense attack and was about to collapse. What a powerful spiritual energy! Among the crowd, the masters couldn't help exclaiming. Those with weaker strength even wore pained expressions under the violent energy fluctuations. They suddenly felt that even breathing had become difficult, as if there was a mountain pressing down on their heads, making them feel like they were kneeling on the ground. "Ninth brother, be careful," Yang Wei shouted as he hurriedly retreated, avoiding the center of the spiritual energy impact. Yang Zhao and the others also quickly retreated, only stopping after 1,000 meters or so and glancing over. Fierce. At the center of this spiritual energy vortex, Yang Kai's eyes lit up as he couldn't help praising. Lu Qingyao's divine sense attack, even if it was supported by a mysterious grade artifact, required a certain level of foundation. Lu Qingyao's strength was truly unfathomable. Yang Kai estimated that the strength of Lu Qingyao's divine sense was not inferior to an average immortal ascension boundary 5th or 6th stage master. Lu Qingyao's eyes were as sharp as a hawk's as he stared at Yang Kai. Using his divine sense attack in his first move, he obviously wasn't going to give Yang Kai a chance to exchange 3 moves. He thought that Yang Kai was the youngest here, so even if he lost, it wouldn't be too shameful, so he wanted to defeat Yang Kai in 1 move without mercy. But soon, Lu Qingyao's eyes trembled. His divine sense attack had actually not affected his opponent in the slightest. Even Yang Wei and the others had to retreat 1,000 meters away to observe. On the other hand, Yang Kai, who was at the center of the spiritual energy explosion, didn't show the slightest expression of discomfort, instead filled with a strong fighting spirit. In a flash, the terrifying spiritual energy dissipated and Yang Kai stood in place, motionless. The last thing he feared was divine sense attacks. Heavens, how is that possible? How could he be safe and sound? Did I see wrongly? Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. An immortal ascension boundary cultivator has an absolute advantage over a Yuan Qi cultivator. Could it be that the youngest young lord of the Yang family is also wearing a high-grade soul defensive artifact? The crowd who had been watching the fun began shouting, some of them unable to accept such a result. When Lu Qingyao released his terrifying spiritual energy, everyone thought that the dust had settled and that Yang Kai would definitely be seriously injured and pay the price for his arrogance. But now that the result had appeared, they suddenly found it difficult to accept. Even if he had a soul-type artifact, his defense shouldn't have been so watertight, right? They hadn't even seen Yang Kai's soul-type artifact react. It was as if he had relied on his own body to withstand such a blow. 2 more moves. Yang Kai grinned at Lu Qingyao. How did you? Lu Qingyao frowned, his face filled with suspicion. As the attacker, he was even more surprised than the others, his expression becoming serious. Nodding gently, he said, "You really have some skill. It seems I underestimated you." As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly took a step forward. With this step, Lu Qinyao's aura once again changed in Yang Kai's eyes. The central capital's first young lord had suddenly grown several times larger, but when Yang Kai looked closer, Lu Qinyao was still the same Lu Qinyao, nothing had changed. His expression becoming cold, Yang Kai knew that his opponent's martial skill had caused him to misunderstand, so he quickly gathered his thoughts and focused his attention on dealing with this situation. Taking another step forward, Yang Kai found that even though he was concentrating, he couldn't resist that momentary fluctuation. Lu Qinyao's aura had grown several times larger than before, although it was only for a moment. The third step. With this step, a muffled sound seemed to echo from the depths of the void. It was like a huge war drum had been struck, resounding in everyone's heart. Lu family's 9 winding steps. Yang Wei's expression changed slightly as he shouted. The world energy around him became strange. Lu Qinyao seemed to have transformed into a bottomless pit, madly swallowing the surrounding world energy. The 4th step, asterisk dong. Asterisk, a more violent sound than the previous one, was transmitted to the heart, causing the weaker cultivator to suddenly feel their blood and yuan qi fluctuating uncontrollably. The 5th step, one after another, a series of muffled groans rang out. Among the crowd, all cultivators below the yuan qi boundary 5th stage, without exception, spat out a mouthful of blood. Even from such a distance, Lu Qinyao's actions could still cause such a strong reaction. The central capital's first young lord truly deserved his title. The 6th step, the 7th step, with the fall of Lu Qinyao's every step, a powerful thumping sound rang out, causing the world to tremble and tremble, as if even the heavens and earth were unable to withstand his stamping. As the number of steps he took increased, Lu Qinyao's figure rapidly grew larger and larger in everyone's eyes. At this moment, the central capital's first master had become a behemoth, his head touching the sky and his feet firmly planted on the ground. No matter who it was, they could only look up at him from an angle. The 8th step, the 9th step, in the eyes of the onlookers, Lu Qingyao's giant foot, which was large enough to flatten half of War City, was slowly and strangely stamping down towards Yang Kai's head, making everyone feel as if they were about to be crushed into dust. As soon as this thought appeared, many people felt as if they were in danger, their faces going pale and their bodies trembling uncontrollably. The Lu family's 9 winding steps, a mysterious grade mid-rank martial skill, had always been the Lu family's secret skill. With 9 steps, the earth would be destroyed and the heavens would be punished. Just as the giant foot was about to step on Yang Kai, the youngest Yang family young lord finally moved. Clenching his right fist, a dazzling star field pattern suddenly appeared in front of him, filled with dazzling twinkling stars. As he swung his right fist, a dazzling burst of starlight appeared. Star mark. Yang Kai hadn't used this move for a long time. It wasn't that he didn't want to use it, but rather that he hadn't had the opportunity to do so. All the energy contained in the star atlas space on the back of his hand erupted at this moment, meeting the giant foot that was about to step down without any fancy moves. The momentum of this attack was like a rainbow, releasing a shocking light, as if it wanted to smash through the world. Hong. Violent and huge waves of energy collided and raged in all directions, canceling each other out. The starlight quickly dimmed, but the unbelievably huge Lu Qingyao seemed to have been knocked off his feet. His giant foot, which seemed capable of trampling the heavens and earth, was now unable to descend. The Lu family's 9 winding steps had actually been blocked head-on. On top of that, this person was only a true element boundary 8th stage cultivator. Everyone was shocked as they stared at the scene in front of them in disbelief, their minds filled with confusion. Chapter 466. The violent energy turbulence lasted for a while before gradually subsiding. When the dazzling starlight disappeared, Yang Kai coldly snorted and fell a dozen meters or so before stabilizing himself. Facing Lu Qingyao's mysterious grade mid-rank martial skill head-on, even the star mark was unable to withstand it. What's more, the gap between the two of them was several small realms, and there was also the immortal ascension boundary separating them. Yang Kai wasn't having a good time, but Lu Qingyao's body also swayed slightly, and the huge figure in front of everyone's eyes suddenly collapsed. It was as if he had been pierced by a sharp sword, his entire aura leaking out. The terrifying pressure dissipated, and everyone felt as if the clouds and mist had been lifted to reveal the bright moon. Looking around, the two of them were still staring at each other from 200 meters away, as if they had never fought before. The several Yang family young lords were dumbfounded. They never knew that Yang Kai was so strong. Everyone knew that his own strength wasn't weak, but no matter how much they overestimated him, they had still underestimated their 9th brother. In a one-on-one fight, no one in the Yang family was his opponent. He was only Yuan Qi boundary 8th stage, so how could he be evenly matched with Lu Qingyao, an immortal ascension boundary 3rd stage master? Yang Zhao and the other young lords' expressions were somewhat ugly. Although in the inheritance war, personal strength wasn't very important, in the end, as a cultivator, they still hoped to pursue the peak of the martial Dao, step onto the above immortal ascension boundary, and be respected by tens of thousands of people. This had nothing to do with the inheritance war and competing for the position of family successor. Only Yang Wei shook his head and smiled bitterly. In his heart, he was secretly relieved. There's one more move. Yang Kai patted his chest and looked at Lu Qingyao with a smile. The latter's expression became dignified, no longer daring to underestimate Yang Kai, unexpectedly slowly shaking his head. No need. Right now, you're not my opponent. But I admit that you have the qualifications to fight me. Saying so, he casually tossed something to Lu Qingyao. Throwing the mysterious grade artifact he had snatched before to Yang Kai, his eyes flashing as he said, "I'll wait for you. Advance to the soul travel realm, then let's have a good fight." Yang Kai grabbed the artifact and was slightly surprised. His eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything else. In those 2 moves just now, Lu Qingyao hadn't used his full strength. But what Lu Qingyao didn't know was that he hadn't used his full strength. The reason why Yang Kai had decided to take the lead was only because of the rare mysterious grade artifact. If it weren't for this temptation, he wouldn't have bothered to fight with Lu Qingyao. But now, it seemed that this person was a little arrogant, but he was not a despicable person. Now, he had obtained the secret treasure. Naturally, there was no need to be entangled. Seeing the artifact that Lu Qingyao had obtained by sacrificing the Water Moon Blue Wave armor to Yang Kai without any hesitation, everyone's eyes couldn't help turning red as their breathing heated up. In the blink of an eye, it was ninth brother who took the first two mysterious grade artifacts. Turning his head, Yang Kai glanced at Yang Wei. Lu Qingyao nodded gently. Eldest young master, I know where the limits of your Yang family lie. Ninth young master indeed has more potential than you, but I, Lu Qingyao, have not yet reached my limit. When the time comes, let's compete again. Saying so, he turned around and left. Everyone's expression was a bit complicated, but when they turned to look at Yang Kai again, their eyes were filled with dread, as if they felt the need to re-evaluate their ninth brother. Yang Kai's expression remained indifferent, and after Lu Qingyao left, he immediately flew down. Damn, there's still one more. Yang Kong also recovered and quickly chased after him. Of the 8 mysterious grade artifacts, each of the 6 brothers had obtained one, Lu Qingyao had obtained one, and the last one had fallen into Pajing Lake. After witnessing the Qi Binding Seal and the mysterious grade artifact's seal, no one dared to rush into the lake to search for it, so even now, no one was interested in that mysterious grade artifact. Hearing Yang Kang's shout, everyone suddenly woke up and began scrambling, lest someone else take advantage of them. However, no matter who it was, no one dared to get too close to Yang Kai. Now that everyone's blood warriors had their Yuan Qi sealed, there was no blood warrior to protect them. With Yang Kai's performance just now, it would be easy for him to seize this opportunity and capture them. If they were defeated in the inheritance war because of this, it would not be worth it. Yang Kai also found that all of them were on guard against him, so naturally he wouldn't waste any effort. A moment later, the 6 of them returned to their respective camps. The 9th batch of heaven-grade artifacts was still being snatched, and now more than half of them had been claimed, only a small number were still wandering around, constantly changing hands. The scene was even more intense than before. The cultivator from the 6 camps also suffered casualties one after another. Huoxing had returned. His Huo family hadn't lost many people. Although the 2 Immortal Ascension Boundary 5th Stage cultivators were injured, their injuries weren't serious. As for the Yuan Qi cultivator, 2 or 3 of them had died. Young Lord Kai. Huoxing's expression was gloomy. Do you want me to ask my old man to destroy the Xiang and Nan families? Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at him, not quite understanding why he would say this. That Xiang Chu and Nansheng brought 2 groups of people and didn't do anything but deliberately set themselves against our people. Damn it, they don't even put this young lord in their eyes. Young Lord Kai, if you say the word, I'll ask my old man to take some people and destroy the Xiang and Nan families tomorrow. Yang Kai sneered, can't afford to lose? If you can't afford to lose, then don't participate in the inheritance war. Huoxing rolled his eyes and muttered, what do you mean can't afford to lose? It's just that their actions of harming others without benefiting themselves are too disgusting. I also know that the rules of the inheritance war are not allowed to privately retaliate against the various forces involved. But who is this young lord? This Huoxing is a scoundrel. I don't care about the rules. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. There's no need, they will pay the price sooner or later. He had also noticed this situation a moment ago. He knew that Xiang Chu and Nansheng's resentment towards him was quite big, so they were targeting him, but if he really wanted to privately retaliate against the Xiang and Nan families, that would definitely not be allowed. Doing so would undoubtedly affect the nerves of all the forces involved. When that time came, who would dare participate in the inheritance war? Good, you have the final say. Huoxing didn't object. But young Lord Kai, remember this, not only the Xiang and Nan families, but also that Lu Song with no eyesight. If one day we really face off against them, this young lord will kill every last one of them will die. Such a day will come. Yang Kai sneered. In addition, that little brat Qiu Zirua is also a bit strange. Although he isn't as obvious as the Xiang, Nan, and Lu families, he still treats us as his enemy. I think he wants to use defeating you to consolidate his position as the Qiu family's successor. Sighing, Yang Kai continued, it's not easy for him to have a sister like Qiu Yimeng. We're all from the central capital, so I'll spare his dog life. As he spoke, he could already see the scene of his side's victory. Let's not talk about that. What's the situation with that artifact now? Yang Kai turned his eyes to Pijing Lake and asked softly. It's still down there. Huixing glanced around. Everyone is staring at it, but no one dares to go down. Yang Kai nodded. The seal on the artifact and the qi binding seal placed on it made everyone somewhat cautious. Now, no matter who went first, it would not be good for them and would only benefit others. Naturally, no one was willing to be the first to go first. If they wanted to bear the brunt of the attack after the barrier was triggered, they would need at least an Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Master to block it. However, blocking these attacks wouldn't help. Even the Blood Warriors were affected by the Qi Binding Seal, so how could an ordinary Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Master possibly escape? In other words, if they wanted to break the barrier and Qi Binding Seal on the artifact, they would need to sacrifice at least one Immortal Ascension Boundary 8th Stage Master. No one was willing to do so. Yang Kai's brow furrowed. He secretly felt that this situation was a bit difficult to handle. Not only him but the other 5 also felt the same way, all of them wearing looks of greed and worry. Yang Kai had already snatched 2 mysterious grade artifacts, so in the future, he would undoubtedly have an advantage, but now there was only one left. Everyone was staring at it. Just as everyone was feeling a little helpless, a violent energy fluctuation suddenly erupted from the bottom of Pijing Lake. The faces of the 6 Yang family young lords who were gathered around the lakeside all changed as they quickly looked up at each other. This energy fluctuation was obviously caused by the barrier on the artifact being triggered. Had someone actually sneaked into the bottom of the lake? Which camp did they belong to? Glancing around, Yang Kai's expression couldn't help but become startled because he found that the expressions and eyes of his 5 brothers were the same as his own, all of them suspicious of others. Without any time to think, Yang Kai's tyrannical spiritual energy immediately penetrated the bottom of the lake. Asterisk Kong. Asterisk with a loud bang, the entire Pijing Lake underwent an earth-shaking change. The lake water that was dyed red with blood was pushed by a violent energy, like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. It was blasted dozens of feet into the air, and then poured down again. The scene was quite spectacular. Yang Kai's eyes sank as he scanned the lake water. Soon, a faint light entered his eyes. It was the mysterious grade artifact that had fallen into the lake. As soon as this artifact appeared, it released a burst of blue energy. Qi Binding Seal. This vitality binding spell actually directly entangled the void, and after a few rounds, a blurry figure was faintly discernible in the sky of the lake water. It was bound by the vitality binding spell, unable to move. It's him! Ingjiu, who had always been silent, couldn't help exclaiming. Without even thinking about it, Yang Kai leapt up into the air and rushed towards Pijing Lake, a cold smile flashing across his face as he pushed his true qi to the limit. Asterisk schwa asterisk, the Azura sword appeared in Yang Kai's hand, and as he rushed forward, an overwhelming number of sword waves spread out around him like a pair of wings. Brandishing his sword, Yang Kai sent out a barrage of sword waves. Yang Kai also recognized this vague figure. It was the mysterious master who had sneaked into the pill room this morning. Yang Kai hadn't expected this person's courage to be so great, actually sneaking in here. Yang Kai was certain this person had taken advantage of the battle between him and Lu Qingyao to sneak into the lake. The Blood Warriors had their Yuan Qi sealed and hadn't noticed his existence. The only one who could detect his aura, Yang Kai, had been distracted, allowing him to seize the initiative. However, the ownership of this artifact had yet to be determined. Now that you've revealed yourself, in front of everyone's eyes, let's see how you'll escape. Yang Kai sneered. Just as his smile bloomed, the blurry figure bound by the vitality binding spell actually exploded and turned into a mist just like what happened in the morning. Chapter 467. 13. The first blackout came a little later than expected. This was a feeling he hadn't felt for a long time. Yang Kai was stunned for a moment before his eyes flashed like a sword, his unparalleled spiritual energy condensing into a single point as he searched the area around the artifact. The next moment, the long sword in his hand slashed out in a certain direction. In that direction, another vague figure appeared, grabbed the artifact, and transformed into a streak of light, crossing 1,000 meters in the blink of an eye. This figure's speed was so fast that Yang Kai didn't even have time to launch another attack. This change happened quickly and ended quickly. By the time the mysterious master snatched the artifact and disappeared from everyone's sight, the other 5 Yang family members were still hesitating whether or not to rush over. Above Pajing Lake, the red lake water was still dripping, but the streak of light had already disappeared. Yang Kai stood midair, holding the Azura sword in his hand, his expression somewhat fluctuating. This was the second time. In one day, this person had slipped away from under his nose twice in a row, and both times in broad daylight. What a strange and mysterious person. Stretching out his hand, Yang Kai caught something floating down from the sky, and after seeing it clearly, he was stunned. Putting the thing in his hand into his sleeve, he immediately returned to his camp. No one knew what he had caught in the lake water, but everyone saw this action. For a moment, they couldn't stop guessing and were extremely curious. The 6 Yang family members were still sizing each other up, but none of them showed any joy. There was no joy in anyone's eyes. Everyone was suspecting someone else, suspecting that the mysterious expert was someone else's subordinate. The artifact snatching battle was about to come to an end. The 8 mysterious grade artifacts had been settled, leaving only a small number of heaven-grade artifacts still to be fought over. After half a cup of tea's time, everything calmed down. The 6 cultivators' camp. Fighting and retreating, everyone returned to their respective camps. Just like at the beginning, they stood at 6 corners of Pajing Lake. However, each side had lost at least a quarter of its original number, and among those who had died, there was no lack of immortal ascension boundary masters. Among them, Yang Kang, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying had suffered the greatest losses. When the third batch of artifacts appeared, these 3 groups were caught off guard, and as time passed, their disadvantage gradually increased. Fortunately, the battle didn't last long, otherwise, it was unknown whether these people would have been completely wiped out. All the cultivators on each side were clearly enraged, each of them glaring around with hatred. Forming grudges during the Inheritance War was a normal thing. While the Inheritance War was still going on, no one dared to retaliate in private. But after the Inheritance War was over, these forces who held grudges against each other were destined to fight to the death. Therefore, even though the treasure hunt had ended, the atmosphere was still filled with the smell of gunpowder. Yang Kai sighed, but his harvest, he was the most. Compared, the number of the Yang cultivators' camp, the number 1 cultivators was the number 1. Especially since Kai Yang had obtained 2 mysterious grade artifacts. This was much more valuable than any other artifact. Yang Wei clasped his hands behind his back and nodded gently to the crowd, leading his people and the artifacts they had snatched away in triumph. Immediately, Yang Zhao and Yang Kong left together with Yang Shen and Yang Ying. A great battle ensued. No one was in the mood to cause any more trouble. Ingjiu, what's the situation? Yang Kai glanced at Ingjiu, who had been sitting cross-legged on the ground since he was struck by the qi binding seal. Ingjiu slowly shook his head. I can't raise my yuan qi. My meridians have been sealed, it will take me at least 2 months to break through. And above Immortal Ascension Boundary Master's qi binding seal, even a blood warrior couldn't easily remove it. Yang Kai's brow wrinkled slightly. Ingjiu's yuan qi being sealed was a great loss to him. His existence was like a shadow, a deterrent to any opponent. Now that this deterrent was gone, Yang Kai could only rely on Chu Gao Yi and Xiao Shun. Although they were also very strong, in terms of concealment and assassination, Ingjiu was better. Yang Kai could only wait until he returned and see if Meng Wuya had a way to remove the seal. If even Treasurer Meng couldn't do anything, Ingjiu could only sit idle for 2 months. Let's go back, Yang Kai said lightly. This is for you. Dong Qinghan walked up and handed Yang Kai a small sword the size of a palm. It was the soul-type artifact that Yang Kai had taken a fancy to before. Did you succeed? Yang Kai smiled lightly and didn't act polite, reaching out and accepting it. As soon as he touched it, he felt a chill run down his spine. Using his divine sense, he found that this was indeed an artifact that was very compatible with his spiritual energy. As long as he could refine it, it would play a huge role. With cousin taking action, how could he not succeed? Dong Qinghan patted his chest. That Lu Song dared to oppose this young master? He should take a look in the mirror and see what he's made of. Pausing for a moment, Dong Qinghan continued, but this artifact was obtained thanks to a certain woman. A woman? Yang Kai asked curiously as he played with the small sword in his hand. Dong Qinghan's face showed a look of reminiscence. I feel like I've seen her somewhere before, but I can't remember where. She was the one who threw this thing to me. Which camp is she from? Yang Kai was suddenly stunned. Someone who came to watch the fun. Is she beautiful? Huastars asked with a wretched expression as soon as he heard the word, woman. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also a little charming. Dong Qinghan wore a knowing look on his face as he grinned meaningfully. They're twins, and there's another person who looks exactly the same as her. Lu Song's strength isn't low, true element boundary 7 stage, but even he was sent tumbling several times by her. That woman is quite fierce. Twins? Yang Kai's voice suddenly rose a lot. What kind of twins? He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt that these two people should be the charming twin flowers. In fact, it stood to reason that the people from Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall should have already arrived at his house, but until now he hadn't seen any of them. This made Yang Kai wonder if the charming twin flowers were sulking with him. After all, when they parted ways at Taifang Mountain, Hu Jiao Er's attitude towards him had not been very good. Dong Qinghan was startled and didn't know how to describe it. Instead, he simply pointed and said, "She was just watching the fun over there, but now I don't know where she went." After the artifact snatching battle, the crowd of onlookers had naturally dispersed, and large numbers of people were now advancing towards War City. Yang Kai glanced in the direction Dong Qinghan was pointing, but didn't find the person he was looking for, so he quickly spread out his divine sense and scanned the surrounding 20 kilometers. In an instant he understood everything. As soon as his divine sense spread out, Yang Kai felt 2 distinctive life auras. Everyone's life aura was different, even if some were similar. Even if there were some differences, there would still be essential differences, just like the appearance of all living beings. However, the life auras of these two people were exactly the same, as if they were carved from the same mold. What's more, under Yang Kai's investigation, not only were the two's life auras identical, but it also seemed that the true qi in their bodies could fuse with each other. As their true qi flowed and intertwined, some mysterious principle enveloped them, connecting them as one. Found it? Yang Kai couldn't help grinning as his figure flickered and flew out. What are you doing? Huastars was shocked. Even though he was a lawless person, he couldn't help being startled at this moment, quickly ordering everyone, follow him. As a young lord who was participating in the inheritance war. At any time, under any circumstances, it was absolutely impossible to act alone, otherwise, it was very likely that he would be targeted by a master. Everyone's reaction was also quite fast, quickly grabbing the artifacts they had snatched and following Yang Kai's footsteps. Among the crowd returning to War City, a man and 2 women were rushing back. The man's face showed a look of longing as he recalled the great battle he had just witnessed. He couldn't help feeling his blood boil, wishing he could participate in it himself to quench his thirst for battle. The 2 women, on the other hand, didn't say a word, their demeanor calm. On the other hand, they were quite delicate. This caused the nearby cultivator to frequently cast their eyes towards them. The 2 women remained indifferent, seemingly accustomed to this, neither angry nor secretly happy. Seeing them so submissive, it immediately aroused the greed and lust of many people, many of them wondering if they could obtain some unexpected gains if they approached them at this time. Jiao Er, Mei Er, there are a few people staring at us from the side, Should we send them away? The man suddenly asked softly. Hu Jiao'er's beautiful eyes flashed a trace of disgust and helplessness as she shook her head gently. No, let's return to War City. Yang Kai was still behind them. If a conflict were to break out at this time, he would definitely see it. As if they had seen the exchange between the two of them, their eyes suddenly lit up, knowing that she didn't want to cause trouble, so their thoughts became active. If she didn't want to cause trouble, obviously she didn't have a backer. Moreover, the three of them were quite young and their strength wasn't high, so perhaps they would be easier to deal with. Thinking so, a young man immediately stepped forward from the group, wearing a smile on his face, pretending to be mature and reliable, but before he had time to speak, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his path. This person not only blocked his path, but also blocked the path of the Hu sisters and Fang Ziki. Almost instinctively, the three of them pushed their yuan qi and vigilantly scanned the area in front of them. After seeing the face of this person, Hu Jiao'er suddenly looked embarrassed while Hu Mei-er smiled tenderly. Imprinting this smile into his eyes, the young man couldn't help feeling a little restless, his courage also growing as he shouted, "Who are you?" Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at him. "Ninth young master?" The young man's face suddenly paled as he stammered incoherently. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai frowned. "I wouldn't dare." "Ninth young master, please carry on." Saying so, the young man panicked and quickly fled with his companions. Just now, they had all seen the battle between Yang Kai and Lu Qingyao. Not only was he strong, but he also had a large number of masters under his command. How could a third-rate character like him compare? Afraid of provoking a fatal disaster, the young man quickly fled. "Brother Yang." After the young man left, Fang Ziki smiled and cupped his fists. "Brother Fang, long time no see." Last time at Taifang Mountain, Fang Ziki had said that he wanted to join the inheritance war, so seeing him now, Yang Kai wasn't too surprised. Back at Taifang Mountain, whether it was Storm Hall or Blood Battle Gang, all of them had stood firmly on his side, almost going to war with the Xiang and Nen families, so Yang Kai also had a good impression of Fang Ziki. Chapter 468. After exchanging greetings, Fang Ziji tactfully retreated a short distance, just in time to run into Huixing Chen and the others who were chasing after him. "Hey, Brother Fang?" Lan Chudai's beautiful eyes lit up. Although the two of them were from different sects, after all, they both came from the same place. Meeting each other here at this moment, she naturally felt a sense of familiarity. "You're High Heaven Pavilion's junior sister?" Fang Ziki didn't quite recognize Lan Chudai. Lan Chudai smiled and nodded. Dong Qinghan frowned as he looked at Fang Ziki from head to toe, suddenly clapping his hands and saying, "I know, I was wondering why those two girls looked so familiar. It turns out they are the Blood Battle Gang sisters." The last time Dong Qinghan went to High Heaven Pavilion, he also paid attention to the situation between Storm Hall and Blood Battle Gang. The charming twin flowers and Fang Ziki were both leaders of their respective sects, so he was naturally familiar with them. It was just that he had never dealt with each other before, so he didn't recognize them. This would explain why she had thrown that artifact to him. The group of people were quite tactful, and when they saw that Hu Jiao'er's expression wasn't right, they didn't rush forward to disturb her. Instead, they warmly exchanged greetings with Fang Ziji while secretly perking up their ears to listen for any movement not far away. "Why are you hiding from me?" Yang Kai looked at Hu Jiao'er and asked. "Who's hiding from you?" Hu Jiao'er snorted, her face blushing a little. "You really aren't hiding from me?" Yang Kai's lips curled up as he took a step forward. He asked, "No." Hu Jiao'er's beautiful eyes flashed. "We just arrived here today." Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at Hu Mei-er. Hu Mei-er smiled and moved her lips, silently selling out her elder sister. "Good, since you're here. Then follow me back to the house." Yang Kai knew that Hu Jiao'er was a bit embarrassed, so he didn't ask further. Hu Jiao'er sneered. "We just came to War City to play, we didn't say we were going to participate in the inheritance war with you." "I'm not going." "Mei-er, are you going?" Yang Kai smiled and asked. "I'm going." Hu Mei Er nodded repeatedly. Hu Jiao Er shouted, her chest heaving up and down in anger. She didn't expect her sister's position to be so weak. Yang Kai had only asked casually, but she had already agreed. Hu Mei Er stuck out her tongue and giggled. We're just a second-class sect. Even if we went, we wouldn't be of much help. What's the point of going there? Hu Jiao Er looked a little embarrassed as she whispered softly. Yang Kai suddenly realized that this was what she cared about. Besides Chen Shueshu and Su Xiaoyu's Reflecting Moon sect, which was a second-class sect, the rest of the forces gathered in his mansion were all first-class. Presumably, Hu Jiao Er felt a bit inferior. That was why she had been hiding from him. Jiao Er, in the future, you and Mei Er will be able to stand at the peak of this world. Don't worry too much about your own sect. Yang Kai looked at her with a serious face. These two beautiful sisters were only at the Yuan Qi boundary 5th stage, but now they had already broken through to the Yuan Qi boundary 8th stage, the same as him. On top of that, the twin spirit shared spirit divine art they cultivated was also extraordinary, so it was only a matter of time before they broke through to the above immortal ascension boundary. Could be said that, in the future, there would definitely be a share of this world for the two of them. You think so? Hu Jiao Er's expression was a little dazzled as her beautiful eyes glowed. She looked at Yang Kai with some joy, as if she didn't expect him to have such a high opinion of her sisters. Yang Kai nodded seriously. This seems like they're going to fall. Hua Stars looked over and whispered softly. They fell a long time ago. Fang Ziki grinned meaningfully. Arrogance, I like it. Hui Yang Kai waved his folding fan. Well, I'll think about it. If I figure it out, I'll go to your house with Mei Er in a few days. Hu Jiao Er was secretly happy as she bit her thin red lips, which were very attractive. Yang Kai hooked his finger at her. What are you doing? Hu Jiao Er looked puzzled as she leaned a little closer and whispered into his ear. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and whispered in her ear, If you continue to be so hesitant, I'll reveal your secret to the world. What secret? Hu Jiao Er's neck was pink as Yang Kai's hot breath blew into her ear. Suddenly, she felt uncomfortable, as if thousands of ants were crawling on her delicate skin, itchy and numb. But one side is big, the other is small. After saying this, Yang Kai straightened up and let out a strange laugh, his eyes intentionally or unintentionally glancing at Hu Jiao Er's lower body. Being stared at by his invasive eyes, Hu Jiao Er couldn't help but have the illusion of being stripped naked. Her heart went cold as her face suddenly flushed red and she angrily said, When did I? Saying so, she inadvertently lifted her butt and sucked in her stomach. Since you've said so much, it's up to you whether you want to come or not. Mei Er, come with me. Saying so, he pulled Hu Mei Er and walked towards War City without looking back. Yang Kai, how can you be such a shameless rogue? Hu Jiao Er angrily shouted, grinding her teeth for a while. Shameless rogue? Hua Stars rushed up and said indignantly, Girl, what did young Master Kai do to you? None of your damn business. Hu Jiao Er glanced at him from head to toe, coldly snorted, and hurriedly chased after him. Grabbing one of Kai Yang's arms, she shouted, If you don't make things clear today, I won't let you off. Her personality is a bit bad. It seems that she only acts docile in front of young Master Kai. Hua Stars said thoughtfully, secretly counting the number of beautiful women who had fallen in love with Yang Kai, suddenly admiring Yang Kai's methods of seduction. Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall didn't only send the Hu sisters and Fang Ziki, each of them had brought more than 20 people. Although their overall strength couldn't be compared to the other forces, it was still a token of their sincerity. Last time, because of High Heaven Pavilion's affairs, the two sects had been implicated and many of their masters had been transferred to participate in the siege of the Ash-Gray Cloud Evil Land. Therefore, among the people from Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall who had come this time, there were only 3 or 4 Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters, and none of them had high cultivation. It was because of this concern that Hu Jiao Er had been too embarrassed to ask Yang Kai for help. Since he had come to participate in the Inheritance War, he must have brought some masters with him, but they didn't have many masters with them, the highest being only an Immortal Ascension Boundary 4th Stage Master. Guan Qi, an Immortal Ascension Boundary 3rd Stage Master, was also among them. Yang Kai and Hu Jiao quarreled all the way back to War City and picked up these people from the inn. The current situation of the two sects was something Yang Kai understood better than anyone else, so naturally he didn't care and was instead extremely polite. These people were also quite cautious when they saw Yang Kai's allies. Obviously, they were afraid of what had happened last time. It could even be said that they were walking on thin ice, afraid that if they said something careless, they would bring trouble to their sects. Returning to the mansion, Qiu Yimeng had already led a group of people to greet them with a warm smile. As the second in command of the mansion, the Qiu family's first young lady naturally expressed her gratitude to Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall, chatting affectionately with the Hu sisters while intentionally or unintentionally glancing towards Yang Kai. She was keenly aware that the attitude of this pair of twin sisters towards Kai Yang was somewhat unusual. She couldn't help but gnash her teeth in anger, secretly cursing Kai Yang for being such a pervert. Just going out for a walk, he had actually managed to capture two beautiful women. After returning from the war, there were a lot of trivial matters to attend to. The people from Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall were arranged to stay by Qiu Yimeng while the major forces counted their gains and casualties. Soon the results came out. In this artifact snatching battle, Yang Kai had lost 30 to 40 people, of which 4 were Immortal Ascension Boundary Masters while the rest were Yuan Qi Boundary Masters. Fortunately, this loss was made up for by the people from Blood Battle Gang and Storm Hall who had arrived today. Since they had come to participate in the Inheritance War, everyone had mentally prepared themselves for what was to come. Of the 1,000 artifacts, Yang Kai's people had obtained a total of nearly 200. As for how to distribute these 200 artifacts, Yang Kai threw them all to Qiu Yimeng, giving her a headache. Nearly 200 artifacts seemed to be a lot, but in fact, when it came to distribution, the supply still fell short of the demand. However, Yang Kai believed that with Qiu Yimeng's ability, she should be able to handle the balance well and not cause any resentment between the major forces because of these artifacts. Returning to his room, Yang Kai saw Xia Ningchang asleep on the table. His little senior sister had been performing alchemy all this time. Although the people from Medicine King's Valley had become familiar with Xia Ningchang's alchemy and had cooperated with her, after such a long time, whether it was physical or mental consumption, had been enormous. The sound of the door opening woke her up, but after seeing Yang Kai return unscathed, the little senior sister couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief. Picking her up, the little senior sister seemed to have become accustomed to this kind of intimacy, and besides her slightly flushed cheeks, she was no longer as flustered as before. Gently placing her on the bed and tucking in the blankets, Yang Kai sat on the bed and waited for his little senior sister to breathe evenly. Smiling lightly, Yang Kai gently stroked her hair. Looking at her veiled face, Yang Kai's heart began to stir. Until now, he had never seen his little senior sister's full face. The most he had seen was in the Nine-Yin Mountain Valley, when he had kissed her and lifted half of her veil. Regarding his little senior sister's appearance, Yang Kai would be lying if he said he wasn't curious. He was also convinced that if he wanted to see, his little senior sister would definitely remove her veil. But this kind of hazy mystery was also one of the most attractive aspects of Xia Ningchang. After a moment of hesitation, Yang Kai gave up the idea of lifting her veil to take a look and instead quietly went out, looking up at the crescent moon in the sky, just like Xia Ningchang's eyes when he smiled. "Ingjiu!" Yang Kai called out. From the darkness, a thin figure walked out. Even if he had lost all his Yuan Qi, Ingjiu's ability to conceal himself had become an instinct. "Come with me." Ingjiu nodded slightly, not saying a word. Walking over to the next room, he gently knocked on the door and Meng Wuya's voice called out, "Come in." Yang Kai pushed open the door and entered. Treasurer Meng was sitting cross-legged on the bed, silently circulating his secret art. When Ingjiu looked at him, his face, which had always been as calm as an ancient well, finally showed some emotion. Since Meng Wuya arrived in the house, Ingjiu had been particularly concerned about this person. Not only Ingjiu, but Chu Gaoyi and Xiao Shun were also concerned. Chapter 469. Meng Wuya's strength and mysteries made the three blood warriors feel tremendous pressure. They really didn't know which force in this world could produce such a master. This wasn't an ordinary peak immortal ascension boundary master. This was a master who was only a step away from breaking through to the above immortal ascension boundary. Although the three blood warriors didn't say anything, in fact, each of them was secretly speculating about Meng Wuya's origins. Seeing Yang Kai bring him here, Ingjiu also had some speculations in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. The qi binding seal on him was the work of the Yang family's supreme elder Huang Jiuzhou, so even if Meng Wuya was very strong, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, Huang Jiuzhou was an above immortal ascension boundary master while Meng Wuya was only a peak immortal ascension boundary master. Treasurer Meng. Yang Kai greeted him. Meng Wuya just nodded lightly, glancing at Ingjiu suspiciously and couldn't help letting out a light sigh. Was he imprisoned? Meng Wuya looked at Ingjiu and asked with a smile. Ingjiu responded indifferently. Treasurer Meng, do you have any way to lift the seal on him? Yang Kai sat down and poured himself a glass of water to moisten his throat. Let me see. Meng Wuya didn't refuse, turning to Ingjiu and saying, Come here. Ingjiu glanced at Yang Kai, and with Yang Kai's permission, he walked over to Meng Wuya's side. Seemingly seeing that he wasn't very happy, Meng Wuya chuckled and said, Relax, I know you have some ability, but you're a cripple now. Why are you so wary of this old master? Saying so, he reached out and put his hand on Ingjiu's wrist. The room fell silent for a while. Yang Kai held the glass of water in his hand and put it to his mouth, waiting impatiently. He wasn't sure if Meng Wuya had such means. Ingjiu, on the other hand, remained indifferent. It seemed that he didn't have the slightest hope for Meng Wuya. Heh. After a while, Meng Wuya suddenly laughed. Interesting, the one who set this seal really does have some attainments in this field. Ingjiu's expression changed. That's my Yang family's supreme elder Huang Jiuzhou. This old man doesn't care about the 9 prefectures or the 8 prefectures. Meng Wuya curled his lips. Never heard of any of them. Ingjiu still wanted to open his mouth and argue a few words, but was stopped by Yang Kai. Ingjiu, who had always been silent, suddenly had the idea of arguing with others, obviously because he greatly worshipped Huang Jiuzhou. He didn't allow others to look down on him. After all, Huang Jiuzhou was the only blood warrior who had been promoted to supreme elder. All the blood warriors took him as their role model and goal to strive for. Meng Wuya's words were praising Huang Jiuzhou's level of imprisonment, but in Ingjiu's ears, this old man was a bit too arrogant. He was an above immortal ascension boundary master. What qualifications did a mere peak immortal ascension boundary master have to criticize Elder Huang? Treasurer Meng, just tell me if it's possible or not. Yang Kai leaned forward and asked in a low voice. Yes, Meng Wuya replied casually. Ingjiu's eyes narrowed. Staring at Meng Wuya in shock, it seemed he hadn't expected such an answer. Yang Kai, on the other hand, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't sure what kind of magical means Meng Wuya had, but Treasurer Meng had always given him a mysterious impression. Yang Kai had also seen an above immortal ascension boundary master, Lucy Yanginghao. The Yang family's supreme elders were all above immortal ascension boundary masters. But the feeling he got from Meng Wuya was far less intense. Subconsciously, Yang Kai always thought this old man Meng was somewhat unfathomable, perhaps even more terrifying than some above immortal ascension boundary masters. With such an answer, Yang Kai's heart suddenly settled. If he said he could, then he definitely could. There was no need to ask any more questions. You can lift it? Ingjiu asked in a trembling voice. He couldn't believe it, thinking Meng Wuya was just boasting. Meng Wuya glanced over at him and nodded slightly. How long? Ingjiu asked again. Speaking of which, it wasn't that he couldn't lift the qi binding seal himself, but it would take him at least 2 months of continuous effort. If Meng Wuya also needed such a long time, it would be better to work hard on breaking the seal himself instead of bothering him. Ingjiu didn't have a good impression of this arrogant old man who didn't put Huang Jiuzhou in his eyes, so naturally he wasn't willing to accept such kindness. Meng Wuya raised 2 fingers. Yang Kai raised his brow and chuckled. does that mean 2 months or 20 days? Although he asked this question, Yang Kai was still leaning towards the latter possibility. In his subconscious mind, it was reasonable for Meng Wuya to take 20 days to lift the qi binding seal. Ingjiu also looked towards Meng Wuya suspiciously, his heart filled with doubts. 2 days, Meng Wuya said lightly. Yang Kai and Ingjiu were both shocked, both of them showing looks of disbelief. Yang Kai suddenly discovered that he seemed to have underestimated Meng Wuya's ability. Treasurer Meng was definitely not as simple as he thought. Senior. Ingjiu took a deep breath and said with a strange expression, "It's not that Ingjiu is looking down on you, it's just that your words are a bit arrogant." Meng Wuya chuckled and said, "If this seal had been planted on this old master's body, this old master would have been able to break it in a snap of his fingers, but now that it has been planted on your body, it will only take me 2 days. In fact, this old master has also studied a lot of sealing techniques. This little trick is nothing." Little trick? Yang Kai observed Ingjiu's expression and found that his face was twitching slightly, so he couldn't help feeling amused, but he quickly put on a serious face, coughing lightly and asking, "Treasurer Meng, are you really sure? If you don't want to try then scram, this old master doesn't have time to talk nonsense with you, the door is over there." Meng Wuya snorted, glancing at Ingjiu and saying, "With your ability, it will take you at least 2 months to break this seal, work hard." Ingjiu's expression changed again. Breaking the qi binding seal in 2 months was his estimation of his own ability, but Meng Wuya had seen through it with just a glance. This master's eyesight was quite sharp. Frowning, Ingjiu cupped his fists solemnly and said, "I ask Senior to help. If this junior has offended Senior, please forgive him. In any case, it would only take him 2 days. After 2 days, everything would become clear." In fact, Ingjiu was also very curious about whether this Meng Wuya was as powerful as he said he was. "Treasurer Meng, you see." Yang Kai looked at Meng Wuya with a smile. Old man Meng waved his hand impatiently. "Good, you can go now, he will see you in 2 days." Yang Kai nodded with satisfaction, telling Ingjiu to remain calm before turning around and leaving. Returning to the next room, Yang Kai found that Xia Ningchang was nowhere to be seen. He should have returned to his pill room to perform alchemy. Sitting cross-legged on his bed, Yang Kai took out something from his sleeve. It was a strand of black hair. It was the one he had cut off today at Pajing Lake from the mysterious master who had snatched the 8th mysterious grade artifact. No one had expected that this mysterious master, who appeared and disappeared like a ghost, was actually a woman. In the open and in the dark, he had already confronted her twice today, but Yang Kai hadn't even seen her face yet, so he couldn't help feeling a little depressed. This woman's speed was too fast, and her method of infiltration was also quite amazing. In front of so many people, she had snatched the 8th mysterious grade artifact. Yang Kai really didn't know how she had done it, especially how she had withstood the attack of the artifact and the qi binding seal planted by Huang Jiuzhou while still being able to escape safely. Lu Qingyao had sacrificed a mysterious grade artifact in order to break the qi binding seal, but what about that woman? What Yang Kai was more concerned about was who had recruited this woman to work for him. The shocked expressions of Yang Wei, Yang Zhao, Yang Kong, Yang Shen, and Yang Ying flashed across his eyes one by one, all of them seemingly unaware of the identity of this woman, but he couldn't rule out the possibility that one of them was just acting. After thinking about it for a long time, Yang Kai still couldn't figure out anything and could only put it aside. Flicking his wrist, 3 artifacts appeared in front of him. These were Yang Kai's biggest gains today. Although he had snatched nearly 200 artifacts, all of them added together weren't as valuable as the 3 in front of him. A small palm-sized sword that was cold to the touch, clearly a heaven-grade soul-type artifact. Yang Kai carefully examined it and found that this soul-type artifact was a heaven-grade top-rank artifact. Yang Kai couldn't help feeling overjoyed. Soul-type artifacts were relatively precious and more difficult to refine than other artifacts. A heaven-grade top-rank soul-type artifact was no less valuable than an average mysterious-grade artifact. However, soul-type artifacts were more difficult to refine, especially when one had yet to form a knowledge sea. Yang Kai played with it for a while before putting it aside and continuing to investigate the other two artifacts. Of the two artifacts, one was a mirror that Yang Kai had taken a fancy to. This mirror was also cold to the touch, but the feeling it gave off was different from that of the soul-type artifact just now. The coldness of the small sword was so cold that it could penetrate one's soul, while the coldness of this mirror was enough to freeze the world. Pouring his yuan qi into the mirror, the surface of the mirror flashed and Yang Kai suddenly discovered a bizarre scene. Through the mirror, he saw towering and magnificent snowy mountains. Snowflakes fluttered down from the sky, covering the snowy mountains that connected the sky and the earth in silver. The cold wind whistled, and his field of vision was white and clean. Kacha. The temperature of the entire room suddenly plummeted and the cold aura surged, forcing Yang Kai's true Yang Yuan Qi to resist. A mysterious grade mid-rank artifact. In that instant, Kai Yang understood and couldn't help but be shocked. He didn't know what grade the other 7 mysterious grade artifacts were, but what he was certain of was that there weren't many mysterious grade mid-rank artifacts, at most 1 or 2 of them. The mirror he had taken a fancy to was actually a mysterious grade mid-rank artifact. The value of a single mysterious grade mid-rank artifact was equivalent to 10 mysterious grade low-rank artifacts. This time I've really struck gold. Yang Kai felt a surge of excitement. Withdrawing his yuan qi, the light on the mirror suddenly disappeared and the endless snow-capped mountains also disappeared. Before refining it, Yang Kai didn't know what this mirror was used for. Putting down the mirror, Yang Kai set his eyes on the last artifact. This was the one Lu Qingyao had thrown to him, the bone shield. Chapter 470. This bone shield wasn't very large, only about the size of a millstone. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of monster beast bone it was made from, but it had a strange shape and was shimmering with an ivory-like white luster. On the edge of the bone shield were sharp spikes, and on the front of the bone shield was a pattern of a ferocious beast with a ferocious maw. This ferocious beast had a green face and sharp fangs, its eyes glaring at Yang Kai as if it wanted to swallow him whole. When he touched it, Yang Kai felt a bloody and gloomy aura wash over him, causing his heart to tremble. The grade of this bone shield wasn't as good as the mirror just now, only mysterious grade low rank, but this bone shield was obviously a defensive type artifact, so its value wasn't much worse than the mirror. There were many types of artifacts, but generally speaking, defensive type artifacts were rarer than offensive type artifacts, which caused their value to soar. Of these 3 artifacts, each one was more expensive than the last. If he could refine all 3 of them, Yang Kai estimated that his overall strength would be greatly improved. So far, he only had 3 artifacts he could use: the Azura sword, the 1,000-blossoming blood begonia, and the demon's sealing chain. The first 2 were heaven-grade artifacts, and after using them for so long, Yang Kai was sure they were heaven-grade top rank. After all, these were the hallowed artifacts of a first-class sect in the Endless Sea Islands, so their grade couldn't be too bad. A first-class sect would definitely have a mysterious grade artifact, at the very least, 1, but the Azura sword and the 1,000-blossoming blood begonia were still considered sect-hallowed treasures. It must be because these 2 artifacts had a special meaning. The grade of the demon sealing chain was unknown, but after sealing the soul clone in the evil cavern, the demon sealing chain had lost its intelligence. Even now, it was still being nourished by Yang Kai's yuan qi and had yet to fully recover. Now that he had obtained 3 high-quality artifacts, Yang Kai naturally wanted to refine them for his own use as soon as possible. After careful consideration, Yang Kai put away the soul-type artifact and the mirror first and held the bone shield in his hand. Circulating his yuan qi, Yang Kai began refining them while cultivating. Pure and powerful true Yang Yuan Qi poured into the bone shield without restraint. This greatly increased the refining speed. Time passed. Yang Kai had been in seclusion in his room ever since he returned from the treasure hunt. His little senior sister, on the other hand, came back once a day. She never disturbed him, and only slept quietly by his side, with a peaceful expression on her face. In the mansion, the little bit of sorrow that had arisen from the loss of manpower gradually disappeared. The bloody battle gang and storm house people quickly integrated into the large family of Yang Kai. The Hu sisters also settled down with a clear conscience, and gradually became familiar with many of the young leaders of the various forces. The only thing that made them depressed was that they hadn't seen Yang Kai in the past few days. Not to mention them, even Chiu Yi-meng, the second in command of the mansion, found it extremely difficult to see Yang Kai. However, everyone knew Yang Kai was definitely refining his new artifact. 2 days later, Chu Gao-yi, who was guarding the central hall, was resting with his eyes closed when a breeze suddenly blew past him. Opening his eyes, he happened to see Ying Jiao staring at him. "Why aren't you with the little lord? What are you doing here?" Chu Gao-yi asked suspiciously. Yang Kai's safety. Ying Jiao had always been the one in charge, always following him closely. The little lord is in retreat, and his safety is definitely not a problem. Ying Jiao thought of the old man next door to Yang Kai and didn't seem worried at all. Even so, you can't be careless. Chu Gao-yi began to reprimand him. "Let's not talk about that." Ying Jiao sighed and said, "Old Chu, I've met a powerful expert." "How powerful?" Chu Gao-yi was stunned. The blood warriors were very powerful. Not only were they from the Yang family, but they also had the mad tyrant blood skill, so the blood warriors had always been a group with eyes above their heads. Few people could enter their eyes. Very powerful. Ying Jiao was as concise as ever. How powerful is very powerful? Chu Gao-yi rolled his eyes. When his brothers spoke together, he was more casual. However, since Ying Jiao had such a high evaluation of this person, that person's strength must be very powerful. Chu Gao-yi couldn't help feeling interested, wondering what kind of person Ying Jiao had met that caused him to show such a shocked expression. "I estimate that if we really fought, any one of us would be defeated within 3 moves. Ying Jiao said seriously. Chu Gao-yi's jaw dropped. He had never heard such a high evaluation from Ying Jiao before. After a moment of silence, he asked solemnly, "What if I used my mad tyrant blood skill?" "You still wouldn't be his opponent, at most 10 moves. Above immortal ascension boundary? Peak immortal ascension boundary. Bullshit." Chu Gao-yi spat at Ying Jiao's face. Ying Jiao wiped his face indifferently and said seriously, "It's true." Chu Gao-yi's expression became strange as he stared at Ying Jiao, not willing to believe it. Peak immortal ascension boundary masters, it wasn't that they hadn't met before. Even first-class forces had peak immortal ascension boundary masters. After using their mad tyrant blood skill, whether it was Chu Gao-yi or Ying Jiao, they had both defeated a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator. A single cultivator, no matter how strong they were, had their limits. How could they possibly defeat him within 10 moves when he used his mad tyrant blood skill? Even the Blood Warrior Hall's Hall Master Feng Xing didn't have such ability. Feng Sheng was the most powerful peak immortal ascension boundary master Chu Gao-yi had ever encountered in his life. In this world, there was no other peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator stronger than Feng Sheng. "Look at me now." Ying Jiao straightened his body and said, "Look at you what?" Chu Gao-yi frowned, suddenly showing a look of horror. "How did your Yuan Qi?" He finally realized that something was not quite right. The Qi binding seal was lifted. "That master helped me. How is that possible?" Chu Gao-yi was shocked beyond words. It had only been 2 days, yet the Qi binding seal had been lifted in just 2 days. What kind of bizarre method was this? However, Ying Jiao's Yuan Qi was indeed circulating freely in his meridians, showing no signs of being imprisoned. Even if Chu Gao-yi didn't dare believe it, he had no choice but to believe it. "Who was it?" Chu Gao-yi finally asked. Ying Jiao glanced around, waved to him, and whispered in his ear. "That old." Chu Gao-yi was stunned. He knew that Meng Wuya was very strong, but he hadn't expected him to be this strong. "It was him. I'm still a little confused." Ying Jiao kept shaking his head, finding it difficult to accept this fact. 2 days ago, he had also asked Meng Wuya to give it a try, but today it had really worked. Thinking back, that old man had casually poked him a few times, and then taught him a set of breathing techniques. As he breathed in and out, the vitality binding spell collapsed in a muddle-headed manner. It was so amazing that Ingjiu thought he was dreaming. Only now did he realize that when Meng Wuya said 2 days ago that he was quite knowledgeable about sealing techniques, he wasn't just talking nonsense. This was clearly an extremely profound skill. Old Chu, I've discovered that there are many mysterious people in this house. Ingjiu sighed. I've also noticed. Chu Gaoyi nodded. Needless to say, Meng Wuya had broken Huang Jiuzhou's qi binding seal so easily. The new pair of sisters were also extremely strange. Obviously, they were only Yuan Qi 8th stage cultivators, but whether it was Ingjiu or Chu Gaoyi, both of them felt that if they fought, they wouldn't be inferior to an immortal ascension boundary cultivator. Even an ordinary immortal ascension boundary 3rd or 4th stage cultivator wouldn't be their opponent. There was also the little lord's senior sister. Wearing a veil, she went in and out of the pill room all day, producing a variety of extremely high-grade pills with pill veins. Mysterious grade pills were commonplace in Yang Kai Mansion. Moreover, this woman's strength had also improved tremendously. When she first arrived, she was only an immortal ascension boundary 1st stage cultivator who seemed to have just broken through, but in the blink of an eye, she had broken through to the immortal ascension boundary 2nd stage. Now, she had completely stabilized and was on the verge of breaking through to the immortal ascension boundary 3rd stage. Yang Kai hadn't even seen her in retreat before, so how did her cultivation increase so quickly? Moreover, after taking those pills, the young lords and young ladies in the mansion also underwent astonishing changes. The men were becoming more and more handsome while the women were becoming more and more beautiful. All of them seemed to have been reborn. Although the progress of their strength wasn't as terrifying as the veiled woman's, it was still much faster than normal. The most mysterious of them all was undoubtedly the little lord. Chu Gaoyi and Ingjiu's injuries had long since healed. Not only were their injuries completely healed, but their previous hidden injuries had also disappeared. Even Xiao Shun, who had joined later, said these days that he felt refreshed and his hidden injuries had disappeared. His cultivation speed was also much faster than before. All of this was definitely the work of the earth-grade pills the little lord had given them. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of profound mysteries were hidden in them. On top of that, his own methods could almost be said to be divine. From the beginning of the Inheritance War until now, he had already made many astonishing moves, causing Chu Gaoyi and Ingjiu to admire him more and more. It was said that every generation would produce geniuses, so how could there be so many strange geniuses in this generation? On top of that, all of them were gathered around Yang Kai. Old Chu, speaking of which, I seem to be breaking through to the immortal ascension boundary 9th stage soon. Ingjiu's mouth curled up slightly. Me too. Chu Gaoyi was not to be outdone. Did we cultivate so quickly before? Ingjiu stared straight at him. No. Chu Gaoyi frowned and asked in a low voice, what do you want to say? I just feel that it's a bit unusual for so many strange geniuses to gather around the little lord. Is it because of them or because of the little lord? Ingjiu said meaningfully. Chu Gaoyi's expression shook as a look of amazement appeared on his face. After being reminded by Ingjiu, Chu Gaoyi suddenly realized something. It didn't make sense for all these strange geniuses to gather around a single young lord, and when these young lords and young ladies first arrived, they didn't show much of a difference. Although their aptitude and cultivation were better than average, that was the extent of it. However, as time passed, it seemed that all of them had become incredibly talented. During this time, many people in the house had broken through bottlenecks one after another and ascended to higher realms. But if it was because of Yang Kai, then how did he do it? Even the Yang family's dragon transformation pond didn't have such a remarkable function. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.